Hey guys, before we jump into the episode, I wanted to let you know it is brought to you by Denim. As a business owner myself, I personally know the importance of financial stability and preserving cash flow to help navigate through any freight market. With Denim's comprehensive service offering, you now have an all-in-one financial partner whose platform includes factoring, payments, freight audit, document collection management, and analytics, which help keep your business financially healthy and increase your team's time to focus on revenue-producing activities. You can also take advantage of Denim's free credit check, which they perform on all of your customers. And Denim will proactively reach out to you if they spot any signs of credit deterioration. Finally, Denim always pays your carriers first. As a broker, this is imperative to preserving your credit score in the market, which ultimately helps you become a broker of choice to your carrier partners. Are you ready to learn more? Visit denim.com to schedule a demo today. Just do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you.
This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agents' success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, you guys, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Friday, everybody. I got a very special guest for you guys here today. And, I'm really excited to talk about today's topic, which is, it's all around AI automation and everything, but it's not about anything other than where do I start, right? I feel like there's so much information that's coming at us at any given moment out there. And a lot of it is at step 50 in your business, but where do you start from step one, especially if you've never adopted anything like this? And there's a lot of terminology and jargon that's thrown in front of you, and you might not even know what that means, right? So at the end of the day, we're going to start that out and build that up. And I have none other than Mr. Mike Horvath on the show today with Revenova. Mike, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me. Happy Friday.
Dude, yeah, absolutely, man. And it's exciting times out there. And, you've been in tech for a while. You've kind of seen all of this, and you're especially on the front lines of, building out all of this stuff. And, I see so much stuff that pops up throughout every single day, Mike. There's a new tool that's being released and everything. And, from my perspective, it's where do you start? And how do you know that you're actually putting the right tech inside of your company for where it's at? So how do you guys at Revenova really attack that head on?
Yeah, AI obviously is the hottest thing going right now in our industry. People are looking around to see how they can use it, what it can do. And there's, multiple facets of AI. So there's the ability to use, AI to look at large amounts of data and predict things, right? So, we've seen movement in that area on rating, try to predict spot market rates by, churning a bunch of historical data, throwing AI engines at it, and trying to predict things. You can use AI to create documents, right? So declarative AI, where it's, I need to create a letter for something, and it creates a beautiful textual description for you. You can use AI to, probably the best use case we've seen is AI to read documents, read emails, and turn that into structured data that can then be used in your applications. And that's where we started. We're really fortunate that, being on the Salesforce platform, like we're developed, Salesforce is doing, tremendous work in the world of AI. They've had Einstein AI for quite some time. They just recently introduced Agent Force, which is a whole AI framework that lives on the platform. And of course, all of our customers can leverage that. And then in addition to that, we launched our Artemis AI capabilities, that are baked into the TMS. And we started with what we think are the two most obvious use cases that we've seen people use, which is taking unstructured data, that's emails that are coming at you, or just typing in a conversational way into the interface and creating records and automating a flow. So the first two that we did were quoting. So as a broker, you get all kinds of inbound emails. How much to move freight from here to there? How much to move freight from here to there? Right. And so how can you automate that and do it quickly and do it accurately, and using AI to process those documents and then have it literally feed the TMS to do the rest of the things that the TMS is already doing. Quickly rate this load, quickly communicate back to the customer who asked for that rate, what that rate might be, and the ability for them to book it, right? So it's a combination of AI doing the hard part, reading the document, turning it into real data, doing that accurately, and then pitching it into the TMS as if a user entered it, right?
Yeah.
The way we think about AI agents is they're automated people, doing the things that people might be doing, but not all the things that people can do, because it's not there to do everything, but it can do some of the just mundane task, very heavy task-oriented data entry stuff very well. And that's on the tech side of it, right? There's a lot of movement on the voice side too. We're working with a number of partners in that area on voice agents, that have, AI-driven telephony conversations with, carriers and potentially customers that can update the TMS or grab data from the TMS and voice it back to the caller, right? So that's quoting is a big one, load creation and quoting. And then the second one is capacity. And everybody gets the emails daily. Hey, I've got 10 trucks in Dallas trying to get out,
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a real pain just to get that stuff into your system so you can operationalize it. And so what Artemis does is really help our customers do both of those functions in a very efficient manner. Read those emails, or just copy and paste text into the UI, and it creates those postings for you. Copy and paste the text into the UI, or read an email automatically and generate quotes for customers.
Yeah, it's, the thing that I am, I've talked about this frequently on the show, right? Like I truly feel like as a broker, 95% of my day should be automated. There are a couple of key components that I will personally never choose to automate, but I look at it as, like we were talking before we jumped on the show here, Mike, like I operate in the real world, and it's not just like, oh, snap your fingers, all of a sudden everything's figured out in business. And, there's so much coming at you so quick, and you spend so much time developing a book of business, developing customers, and then that inevitable windfall of opportunity hits. And you might be in a position in your business where, you don't have the money to invest in hiring 3 to 5 people to join your staff. And if you do have that money, everybody knows the inherent risks that comes along with it. There's always a natural ramp up period. But if you have opportunities coming your way now, you need something to help strike when the iron's hot, to where you don't let your competition seek in and, and eventually take that business away from you. And that's what excites me the most about a lot of this is I feel like for those companies out there that are bootstrapping, or who are, trying to scale in a smart manner, where they can start leveraging a lot of this tech out there, Mike, to where they can piece it in, and, maybe they can keep their headcount lower for a little bit longer, so they can, because as you grow and scale, you don't know you might not have processes for certain things yet. This gives you some time to build up a lot of that to help you grow in a way to where it's like you're not going to feel like you're overwhelmed and eventually just throw your hands up in the air and be like, all right, I don't want this. Or the dreaded missed opportunities that do come into your inbox and you don't see it because it gets buried for whatever reason.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, the early, very successful use cases have been, get me out of data entry mode, get me into, value add mode, right? So AI can do all the data entry for you, it can read documents with great high degree of accuracy, put the information in front of you, can even do research on your behalf very rapidly for you, and give you come back to you with all the information you need to then maybe take that next step, and it saved you all that time, right? So you're working the harder, complex things, and a lot of the research and data entry is taken care of by the automation. And then that's where we see, the biggest lift right now and the most success right now. And over time, who knows where it goes? It's the technology is very evolving. There's all kinds of players in it, and we'll see how it all shakes out. And then Salesforce, of course, is putting huge investments into it with Agentforce and all the things there. And so we're very excited about where we can take it in this, in our TMS, to help our customers be more productive, add a lot of value to the users that they do deploy.
So with the people that you're talking to right now, whether it's customers, prospects, or anything out there, what's the biggest concern with a lot of where this is, right? Because again, I feel like, for me personally, it's like there is so much coming out at rapid pace, right? There's so many different offerings that are coming out in front of people. What do you actually need, right? And then furthermore, the downstream effect, what are your customers or carriers actually requesting from you as well? Because I feel like sometimes you think tech is going to fix your business for whatever reason, right? You think like, oh, I have this flashy tool, everybody's going to want to work with me.
Yeah, I agree. I think, we've always been, and that's why we call it CRM-powered transportation management, because it's all about customer and carrier relationships, right? And, there's no better relationship vehicle than people talking to people. It's when you have relationships, it's usually not through technology. It's relationships are, I meet you, you and I get along. We want to work together. We know we can trust each other. And so I think, there's this balance you have to strike with automation, versus the personal contact you have with your customers and carriers. Because when, chips are down, I think the relationships matter. We truly believe that. And our system's designed to help you manage those things. So I think that's, the watch out. Of course, like all these, any new technologies and any new technology companies that come up, it's all about, how much staying power do they have? Will they be around a year from now? Will they be around 2 years from now? We've had to cross that bridge. We're in our 11th year now, and we've crossed over that bridge, and we're not a startup. We're a growth company, and we have a very solid customer base, and we're in that space. But as an early stage company, we had to cross those same barriers, right? Yeah. So anytime you have these new technology companies evolving, when we talk to partnerships in this area, we're very cognizant of what's the staying power of that vendor look like? Will they be around for me a year from now or 2 years from now? Do they have the funding? Do they have the solution? And so those are the questions I think everybody has to ask, anytime new vendors appear, and many of them will, and some of them won't, that's just the nature of, software in general. So those are some of the questions you have to ask. I think the other thing now is that we see is, and it's been a challenge in our industry since day one, really, is, integration versus, innovation, right? And so one of the reasons why we like where we're going with it is this, baked in, already integrated AI capability. There's a lot of AI environments, but then they require a lot of integration in order for them to work, right? And so there's a whole layer of work that has to be done before it's effective, and that's doable, and it happens all the time. But that's the other kind of challenge that you might have is, okay, how does this AI platform that can do these cool AI things work with my data? How does it communicate with my system? How does it get and put data back in? How secure is that? What else is being used? When I pass that data off to the third party, is it being used in another way? Being resold, other types of things that you have to ask anytime your data is leaving your platform. So we've always been a big proponent of doing, keeping the data, on the platform as much as possible, just sharing the data you want to share with third-party vendors in a way that makes sense for your business and doesn't expose any kind of proprietary secrets, customer carrier relationships that might compromise those things, right? And you have to be cognizant of that because as most freight brokers, right? I mean, your relationships and the things you have with customers and carriers really are your business. That is your business, and if those things are compromised through any kind of technology integrations, just got to be mindful of that.
Yeah, I mean, and you're throwing a lot out there, Mike, and I love that, right? Because that's not ever discussed, right? Like, hey, what does happen to my data internally there, right? Is that something that's being used? How secure is it? And I've tried to talk about that on the show and you know, in the past with other guests, and you've given about as straight of an answer as you possibly can with it. A lot of people kind of like to sidestep that topic. And, you know, because like that, you know, as you're out there building up anything, you know, your customer information, all of that stuff, your rate information, operational trade secrets that you might have. I know some people might not think that you know, that they exist in freight, but they do, right? Like certain people operate in a certain way. And I want to keep that stuff internal. I don't want that potentially leaking out to anybody. And then, you know, ultimately, and this is another hurdle that a lot of individuals cross as a business, as a freight broker, excuse me, when you're prospecting customers, you brought up about like, hey, are you going to be around in 12 months? You know, like that's a very real thing because you're investing a lot into your, you know, shippers or customers, just like they're investing a lot into you, and they need to make sure that you're financially sound to be there for an extended period of time. And, you know, business is hard enough, right? Like out there to get it to build up and to run, but like, it's a very real concern. And sometimes it, you know, there's a lot of stuff going at you. I think it was Peter Thiel who said this in his book, 0 to 1, where it's like, sometimes it does not matter how good your product is, how whatever, if it's the bad time or if it doesn't adopt, it's like, there's nothing you can do about it. Right. And then all of that work and effort that you put out there, what happens to a lot of that stuff? And, you know, and I feel like that's a very large concern for a lot of people in a lot of different industries. Like, I don't think that that's just a freight thing. I think like when there's so many startups that are coming out there, you know, if are they going to make it? What have you seen in your career, Mike? Like, what makes a successful tech company, and what are some of these things that maybe some of these people can kind of look or ask or maybe prod around a little bit in that prospecting phase to kind of see, are you going to be here in 12 months?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. You know, it always starts with value delivering for the customer, right? So what's the ROI on your solution? And then it's also married up against what's the competitive scenery look like, right? And so it's, you know, it's not, there's no, I don't think there's a black and white answer to this one. It kind of comes down to, you know, at any early company, and we were very fortunate. We had a lot of people that said, hey, I love your vision as a company. I like where you're going. We had the benefit of having Salesforce as a infrastructure. So as a startup, we were a startup building an application, but on a very proven, very solid, long-standing infrastructure platform. And so, you know, even if we went away, you know, you could run our app on Salesforce, you know, continue to run it, right? Yeah. So because Salesforce is going to be around, and so, you know, that was a, you know, big benefit we had. You know, that's, you know, those are the questions you have to ask, right? How well are you funded? How much runway do you have? You know, how many customers do you have, you know, right now? Who are they? You know, what, you know, talk to them, talk to the references. You know, to me, I think that's the big key is anybody else using it, or are you the first? You know, and sometimes, again, you know, you're willing to take the risk. Some of these things are plug and play too, by the way. I mean, you know, let's say you wanted to test the concept of, you know, AI, and the vendor that you really liked and they get great pricing and everything, but they just somehow went out a year later. But the value prop was there. There's probably another vendor you can swap in. You know, it's going to be a little painful, but, you know, you've proven the value. So sometimes it's even okay to do those things. We've seen it happen. We've done it ourselves with, you know, things that we were looking at to enhance our business. And we're like, hey, let's take a flyer on this because I think they got some upside, and let's go. And, you know, sometimes you win those, sometimes you lose those. But I do think those are the things you should be asking. You know, all those types of things, vet the vendor on their financial stability, you know, kind of on their business processes, you know, who's involved, who are the people backing the startups. Yeah. And, you know, go from there. Yeah, that's how we tend to look at it.
Is there, I mean, I kind of feel like there's a little bit of, you know, tech hesitancy out there, right? Because if you go back to like 2018, and then especially now, it's like, you know, I know the digital broker movement was a massive thing, and then now it's like, you know, marketing is a very real concern for a lot of people out there, and, you know, it's like, I feel like eventually we're going to hit that point of like, oh, it's another AI tool, right? And, you know, and it goes back down to, I think for me, it's like, I don't know if AI is going to be considered a fad. Like a lot of people might be thinking like, oh, this is just kind of the next iteration. I feel like this is something that is going to be definitely a very big thing for a very long time. And I feel like it is a very good opportunity, I think, for, you know, businesses of all sizes, but I really look at it as like the small to mid-sized businesses that are out there, that this really can strengthen your punch out there from an operational standpoint, right? Where now you're going to be in a position to where it's like, again, I want to hire real people, but at the end of the day, I have a budget that I have to operate off of. And if you can't afford multiple people, but you can afford some solid technology, especially one that's already built into your TMS, and you can deploy that out there, how much can that elevate you, right? Because I look at it as, like obviously the biggest threat to the majority of small businesses out there is cash, right? Like you are at essentially running a 30-day sprint every 30 days while you're trying to build up your coffers to keep your business financially solvent for a specific runway. And I look at it as my most important thing is my time, and my time to focus on revenue generating activities, not chasing down certain things that are out there where this is where you can implement tech inside of your business. So you can go out there and focus on cold calling customers, speaking to your existing customers, all of that stuff out there, and strengthening those. Because just like with anything, there is a million of your competitors that are out there hitting up all of your customers at any given moment, waiting for you to slip.
Yeah. I mean, 100% agree. And we've always taken that mantra, which is, we think with our solution, you can focus more on the innovation side of your business and not the integration side of your business, which is, an IT heavy type of thing to get 12 products to work together to make it happen. I do think AI has legs. I think, we've all seen it, right? We had the blockchain wave, then we had all the capacity stuff, and then we had the rating stuff. And, kind of each year, each season at TIA, you'd say, okay, what's the bell of the ball? And it's, what's being talked about this week,
Yeah.
And, but I think, there's been some really good use cases using AI around for a long time, HubTran, now Triumph Audit, using AI to process documents, turn it into data and help on the settlement process. And I think that's how AI is going to have a big impact on our industry, is this ability to take unstructured data and turn it into structured data in ways that, has in a much easier way, using AI engines to do that, to do predictive things, taking a look at your data as you collect it over time and start to predict things for you, mostly probably around rates. Carrier performance would be another really good example of digesting a lot of data points and coming back with outcomes and training it, training the engine to do the right thing. Think of it like your best people. You're training the engine to think like your best people and work like your best people would do it, and interpret things like your, experienced people would interpret it. And that's how you can do, a big part of this is training, right? Part of our Artemis solution is a whole training concept that allows, when things don't get done, right? AI engines hallucinate. They come back and they say, well, what I just read looks like this. And you're like, it doesn't look anything like that.
Yeah.
But you can train it, you can fix it, and you can see the statistics as you train the engine and how well it gets as you start helping it learn how your industry works. And in our world, every one of our LLMs that we use for our customers are all private, right? Going back to the security thing.
Yeah.
Your data is private to you. We can't even see it. I can't even log into your system without you granting us permission. It's not an ASP. We're a multi-tenant solution where your data is your data. You license our application to use its processing, but your data is your data. Same with LLM. It's your LLM. You're training it for your business. It's not shared with other people. It's not mixed with other transactions. We think that's the right way to go. It's highly tuned for your business, and it'll learn over time. As you train it, and I think it's got legs. I really do. I think those use cases aren't going away until people abandon email and abandon unstructured data, which is going to be, it's like the paperless office, right?
Yeah.
It's never going to happen. So, it can be used to read those things and turn it into data and respond automatically if it's confident enough, like your best people would. Or you can use it just to create things where people have that final stage gate to let things go, but you've optimized that process. You can digest thousands of things at one time and turn it into data and automatically respond to maybe 90% of it, and 10% based on your business rules. You say, nope, those types of things I want people to touch.
Yeah.
These types of things I'll automatically respond to. And there's also this concept of like reasoning, or conversations that you can have with AI. So it doesn't have to be, I got it all right the first time. It could be, hey, I got most of it right. The AI might ask a few more questions to the person on the other end of that conversation to get all the information needed. Now I'm going to hand it off to you, Chris, so you can go and close the deal, right? But the AI has done some of the heavy lift data gathering on the front end. You didn't have to spend any minutes doing that. The AI minutes are way less, costly to you as a business than human minutes.
Yeah.
And so you can optimize your people, and they can have your people doing value add. I don't know if it's necessarily replacing people so much as optimizing the person's time, doing all the mundane heavy lift textual research and data entry that yet you normally would have to do in a system in order to get to where you want to be to make the next decision. Do that really quickly with AI.
I think this is a pain point for a lot of sales managers out there is I think I've heard from everybody that nobody updates the CRM with any information. So this is a good way for you to hold your people accountable to updating your CRM and make sure all the customer notes are up to date and everything. Because, like for me personally, like one of my biggest weaknesses, Mike, is I don't write anything down, right? Like I got it all going on up in my head. I can tell you exactly what's going on. I don't want to waste my time with that stuff, right? Fortunately, I have a business partner who loves to write shit down. So we're good from that perspective. But, I'm one of those where it's like, I like to act first, think second in most instances, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But this is where we personally utilize a tool for the media stuff that we do. It's called fireflies.ai, where we drop in all the show files in there. It spits out a transcript for us. It gets everything, and then it'll take out top talking points for us to utilize for our newsletter and then for the show notes and a lot of that stuff out there. And it does it in a matter of seconds, right? So again, talking about time, now my team behind the scenes here, they can do that and then focus on other activities out there about, hey, editing out the clips and everything else while we're doing the transcription, to where it's like my little show packs a massive punch with a lot of high production teams that are out there. And we just utilize the right tool to amplify our outreach out there. And then you can plug and play all of that terminology inside of transportation, where it's like, if you're ever walking into a big sales meeting, drop in, and I've used this on ChatGPT, for example, where I'll drop a company's name in there and say, what are some key current events going on with this company? And then it spits out 37 different things for you to go over, skim over those notes. And I feel like that preparedness aspect of it as well, it saves you time. It does, and it lays it all out for you in a step-by-step guide. Why wouldn't you want to use something like that?
Yeah, and you can see where this can go. I mean, over time, as everything improves, I mean, you've already seen the deep fake videos that look like the person, it sounds like the person, it talks like the person,
Yep.
and you can see how you could have a conversational, I could be an AI robot, imagined page right now talking to you, interacting with you. And when the technology gets to the point where it can be this conversational, and it's getting closer and closer, you've probably heard some of the voice agents like, Vuma or Fleetworks or some of the other guys that are doing the voice stuff, it's getting pretty close to like human type interaction. And it's still got some, wrinkles in it, but it's pretty good. There's some use cases where that will work, and, we'll see. I mean, it's a lot of people testing it right now and looking at it. And I think there's a lot of upside there. If it continues to evolve, it could be as good as this kind of conversation potentially. Mm-hmm. And when it gets there, it's kind of scary at the same time, isn't it?
Dude, it really is.
But you can see the power of it, if you use it correctly, and it could kind of have this kind of conversational interface. That's because I think people do like talking to people. And when you can have someone who sounds and looks and feels and is as smart as a person, and maybe even smarter in some ways, having access to loads of information that they can learn very quickly. The power there is enormous if it's done correctly.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, right? Like I feel like it, the deep fake aspect of things. And this is where I'm like, it kind of really, cause like I like going out and meeting people in person, Mike. Like I like actually shaking people's hands and stuff like that. I feel like that's how sales is going to go back to the Stone Age, right? Because like all the AI dialers that are out there for sales reps right now, for example, you think it, like the manufacturers and they aren't just going to employ an AI bot to field every incoming sales call that comes their way. So what are you going to do? How are you going to stand out in the crowd? And for me, I'm going to polish up my boots and go out and knock on doors and shake hands that way. Cause I feel like inevitably when it swings into one direction, and then again, one thing that I've just personally found success in business, when everybody's saying run to the right, I turn to the left and I sprint, because that's generally where all the results are, because nobody's doing it that way.
Yeah, I think I hope there's always room for, human interaction. And I think AI doesn't necessarily, I think it can replace certain aspects of a conversation or certain data gathering things, like I mentioned earlier. I would hope that it doesn't, replace human to human interactions. I'm the same way with you. I like to get out and meet people, talk to people in person, and there's something, you can't replace that with tech. Even Zoom type meetings, right? They're just not as personal as out there in person, talking to somebody, having a lunch or something, meeting them at a trade event, talking to them one-on-one. You lose something when you have this, screen in between people. I mean, it's not bad. I mean, certainly better than just, no screen kind of talk at all, right? But I think over time, the AI will be a component of an interaction, a component of a process. It might do some full processes, but right now what we see, the best use cases are it's assisting people get their job done faster. They're assistants, they're not replacements. Yeah.
I love that. And Mike, you just literally armed everybody with a mess of questions that they can take out to the TIA and go and ask everybody, because undoubtedly AI will be the literal #1 topic for most people. Go out there, stop at the Revenova booth next week and everything out there at the TIA. Mike, are you going to be there next week?
I'm not going to be there next week, unfortunately. We've this year we got a whole crew out there, and I'm very excited about it. Definitely come see us. We've got a lot to talk about, and love to hear about what you might need as a customer and see if we got a good fit.
I love it. Mike, thank you so much. And you guys definitely need to check out Revenova. It is who I personally use inside of my brokerage. I spend more time in that platform than any other piece of technology that I utilize, you guys, to run my brokerage out there. So hit them up at the trade show. Mike, thank you so much for joining me. That is going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. The Freight Coach Roadshow is going to be on full effect next week, you guys. I'm out on the road every day next week. You'll see me in person and out there, obviously in the signature orange. But as always, if you got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, ladies and gentlemen. If you're feeling really ambitious after this one, which you should be, rank the show on iTunes and Spotify, because that's how your network's going to see value. And if you saw value, chances are they will as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.